Just think about these. These aren't written down anywhere, but remember what we said. Vertical angles, like this is the hourglass case, it would work for bow ties also. Vertical angles are always what? Congruent. So in this case, angle 1 equals angle 2. Always. Whether it's an hourglass or like it's a bow tie, the two angles are equal to each other. But these two are adjacent. They're side by side, and it's a linear pair. It forms a straight line right there. So what would you say about that one? Those two angles are supplementary. They're going to add up to 180 degrees when they're side by side like that, and they form a linear pair. So angle 1 plus angle 2 is 180. Throughout this last page of this section, you're going to use one of these two rules because the entire page is crisscrossing lines. You're either going to find two angles that are vertical, making them congruent, or two angles that are supplementary, making them add up to 180 from a linear pair. So let's look at some. I'm going to do the first 6 with you, then I want you to try the next 6 on your own. Look at this. Decide if they are vertical angles or a linear pair. In this case, they are vertical angles. They look like an hourglass. So I have to realize vertical angles have to be congruent. If I find vertical angles, then I'm going to make them equal to each other. And linear pairs aren't equal to each other. Linear pairs add up to 180, and those are my two rules I need to be thinking about. So in this case, I say x minus 8 equals 55. And my reason for that is because they are vertical angles. So I say my vertical angles theorem. X minus 8 equals 55. Then thinking about what we did last section, we can add 8 to both sides and we can solve it for x, and that would come from the addition property. Adding 8 to both sides is the addition property. And that's your answer. X equals 63. The direction said to then solve for x. Now look at the next one. They're not vertical angles. They're side by side. And side by side, they are forming a linear pair, a straight line right there. So I'm going to make these two add up to 180. The whole trick is recognizing what kind of angles you're dealing with at the very beginning. So I say 3x plus 120 together make 180 degrees, and that comes from the linear pair theorem, that whenever you have a linear pair, they add up to 180. They are supplementary. Okay, so we're subtracting 120 from both sides, and you get 60, and that came from the subtraction property. Then you have to solve for x, so you divide both sides by 3, you get 20, and that came from the division property. Pause, hit stop anytime you need to. Now think about this one. They are side by side, and when they're side by side, they happen to be forming a straight line. So those are linear pairs. And side by side, they form 180 degrees. So 4x minus 3 plus 135 together make 180 degrees. That's supplementary, and it comes from the linear pair theorem. Now I have to do my algebra and solve it, so I have to combine the like terms here. Negative 3 and positive 135 make positive 132 by combining like terms. Then I need to subtract 132 from both sides, and I get 48 by the subtraction property, subtracting 132. And now I divide both sides by 4, and I get 12 by dividing. Okay, I know I'm going a little bit fast, but hit pause and stop anytime you need to. All right, let's look at the next 3 whenever you're ready. These two are not adjacent, they're not linear, they don't form a straight line, they're like a bow tie, so they're vertical angles. Think back to the rule. Vertical angles are congruent. So I say that 12x equals 60 because of the vertical angles theorem. Vertical angles are always congruent. Then I just divide both sides by 12 and I get 5 by the division property, dividing by 12, dividing by 12. But look at these two. They're not across from each other. They don't look like an hourglass or a bow tie. They look like a straight line when they're put together. So that means we make them add up to 180. They're supplementary. 5x plus 3x plus 68 makes 180 degrees right there. Straight line. Linear pair theorem. Linear pairs are supplementary. Now I have to combine like terms. 5x and 3x are going to turn to 8x because there's no equal sign in between them. You combine your like terms. Subtracting 68 from both sides, I get 112 by subtraction. Then I divide both sides by 8 and I get 14 by the division property. The last one we'll do together is right here. The angles make bow ties again. So that means they're vertical angles, and vertical angles are always equal. 5x equals 2x plus 6 by the vertical angles theorem. This 5x and 2x have an equal sign between them, so I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides, and you get 3x equals 6, because I subtracted. And then I divide both sides by 3. I get x equals 2 by the division property. Okay, so I'll try the rest of the page on your own. There's 6 more problems there. Make sure you're really thinking through each reason. The first line has to come from one of the rules. It's either the vertical angles theorem rule or the linear pair theorem rule, and then you can solve the rest from there. So go ahead, hit pause, finish the rest of the page, and when you're done, come back and check your answers and look at the explanations if you got any of them wrong. Okay, so here are the answers that you can check. Got x equals 12, x equals 9, and x equals 25 by all these reasons. And for the last on the page, you get x equals 10, x equals 11, and x equals 3 by all those reasons.